evening, everybody, and welcome to this session of day 7 of Ananta, which is the poetry festival being organized by Samyukta Poetry. And today in the In Conversation session, we have with us Anju Makhija, Keki and Daruwala, Narain, Nirupama Dutt, and Sonu Anand. And we are going to be talking about a genre which has not seen as many footfalls as we would like it to have, and that is dramatic verse. Dramatic verse is a rather tricky sort of a genre which requires a certain subtlety of skill and understanding of the subject and an ability to foresee the effect of what you are writing, because it's only when it is performed that the full force of the play hits you. So it is from that anticipatory standpoint that the dramatist has to be writing this particular sort of narrative. So from that point of view, we have with us a very monumental play today, which is from Anju Makhija's latest book, Collected Plays, which is called Mumbai Traps. And from there, there is an emphasis that we are placing on this particular play, Meeting with Lord Young. Okay, so as I was telling you before, when I came across dramatic verse, it was a few years ago in the form of this play called Andhayug, which was written by Dharamveer Bharti and was translated into English by Alok Bhalla. I'm sure you've heard of the play. And in fact, in that particular edition, Dharamveer Bharti had mentioned this. He says, I've tried to find answers to the problems raised in this verse play, which he calls Drishya Kavya, by seeking help from the last half of the Mahabharata. Okay, so it goes on like that. And, towards the end of that particular introduction, he says, when Andhayug was first presented, the actors faced a peculiar difficulty. They either read their dialogues as if they were written as rhythmic poetry or read them as prose pieces. The solution lies somewhere in the middle. The emphasis should be on conveying the meaning rather than on meter, but the poetic rhythms must also be heard. Okay, so we're going to keep this in mind as we talk to Anju Makhija as well as Keki and Daruwala, both of whom have written verse drama, and Keki sirs is as yet unpublished, whereas Anju Makhija ma'am's has already been published, and it has also witnessed a few performances as well. And luckily, we have with us Mr. Sonu Anand, who has acted, who has voiced certain sections of the play, as well as we have a video from Denzel Smith, who has played the role of Lord Young. Okay. Now, before that, I would like to have an interface with Anju Makhija. And Anju Makhija, as you all know, is an acclaimed poet, somebody whose perception, vision of everyday humanity has always held a certain degree of charm. Somebody who has observed farmlands, with equal felicity as she has observed relationships. Her pickling season still remains one of my favorite poems, and I never get tired of revisiting it. So, Anju ma'am, welcome to Ananta.
Yeah. Okay. Hi.
Hi. So,
it was cutting a bit. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sonia. I've been hearing throughout the festival, people have been thanking Sonia for this wonderful festival. I never thought it's possible for her to sustain 10 days, but she has, and she definitely deserves our appreciation for that. We do 2 days and then people say, oh, enough of poetry. But this is going to be 10 days from morning to evening. So Sonia, you must teach us that skill. Now, second, of course, my concern also was Keki. And as we all know, he says he's not very good at all this stuff. What do he calls it? Technical details. So let's hope he comes back. He was here. We heard his nice, rich voice, and then he has disappeared. So let's hope he comes back. All of us love him as we. I don't have to say that, but that's how it is. And Keki's play, I first saw. He had sent me a copy, and then he sent it to I think Arundhati at Choraha. At that time, Arundhati was in charge of Choraha, so she helped to have a reading of that, and that was, I think, over a decade ago, and it's a historical play. And then later on, when I asked him about it, he's saying, I can't find it. So I said, you can't do that, Keki. You have a play, now you're telling me you can't find it. Then suddenly this year he said, okay, I've read your book and now I think I will find my play. So I said, okay, find it. So he started looking and he's found it today. So somehow we will hear it, I hope. Sonia, I just want to take 2 minutes to talk about dramatic verse. I don't think it's either as difficult or tricky as it has been, as it has been made out to be. I think the only thing we have to remember, and I'll quote here from Auden right away, because otherwise, what is the difference between ordinary drama, ordinary speech, and dramatic speech? Going back again, basically, verse drama is written significantly in verse. That doesn't mean every sentence has to be done that way, but that's how it is. The second point also, which I think is important, is that there are 3 simple basic forms which can have variations depending on the writer. So the first is a monologue and a soliloquy and a dialogue. I think most of us know these words, so I will not elaborate on them. As poets, we have come across them. So it's not only dramatic verse which uses it. Without knowing it, we often may have a monologue in our poetry. So I don't want to mystify it, in fact. And I think my nature is not to mystify things, not to use complex words and things like that. So I think, but what Sonia said did strike me. What she said is that, and I never thought of this, and Sonia, you said that when an actor reads it, like the writer has to anticipate how the actor will read it. And I'd like Sonu to come in on this a bit later when he talks, is that I don't think a writer actually becomes an actor in dramatic verse. I'm often seen walking around with becoming the character. And I love that. I guess all people who write dramatic verse wanted to be actors in a sense. So I love that. So I walk around with my paper and I pretend to be one character, then I pretend to be another. So then you know whether it works or not. So it's great fun rather than sitting there and waiting for somebody to read and then telling you, no, this works or this doesn't work. So that's the way I know it works, because I know it sounds right to me. And I'm sure other panelists have something to say about this. But thank you for raising that point, because that, again, everything I believe, unless there is a certain amount of joy in that creation, or I guess pain, but it has to be that intense of anything. And having used the word intense, that's another feature of dramatic verse. It usually revolves around a dramatic situation. Okay, that's obvious. But the dramatic situation is usually, there should be a tremendous conflict. Now we have seen that. I didn't want to bring in Shakespeare because Shakespeare's plays are so high up there and things like that. But there has to be a tremendous conflict within. I guess also outside in the situation, but within for sure. And the other point I want to say, which Auden said, is dramatic speech should have the same compressed, undocumented character as dramatic movement. Now, if I'm doing dramatic movement, moving around, you say, "Kya ye to hum log ghar mein dekha." So we see the exaggerated forms, which is there in absurd drama, where even if Mr. and Mrs. Smith in the famous drama, they may be sitting in a very exaggerated bored way. So there is always that exaggeration, which we have a panel that is quite expert in this. But I thought this introduction was necessary to just before Keki read or I read. And then at a personal level, how did I get involved in dramatic verse? Well, obviously, a person who writes plays and poetry at some point will combine the two. That's going to happen. It's natural. And as in the introduction to my book, Mumbai Traps, and Uma has written a wonderful preface to that, I talk about how the process evolves and how my love for poetry and theatre came out as dramatic verse. It is coming out further as a musical, because I do consider songs also to be part of verse. Now, songs are often looked down upon as, okay, they're too simple, especially the Broadway musical, but that's not always the case. So songs also are being absorbed in dramatic verse in a way. And that's what I'm trying to do. There's a play in this book called Mumbai Traps. That's a book where the verse play is from. There's a play called Off the Hook. And in Off the Hook, there is a musical and it has 10 songs. I've been asking Denzel to sing them, but nobody has come forth yet. So let me try and get some other actors. But I find songs even harder to write than dramatic poetry, really. And maybe Uma will talk about that later as we go ahead. Okay, having said all that, since Keki is not back, I will start with the reading. Okay.
Keki sir, would you like to just give your mic a test?
I'll call him. Okay, you try calling him later.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am. Please go ahead.
So, the play is called Meeting with Lord Yama. Now, I don't have to explain anything, whether Yama or anything. Basically, the play is long. There's no doubt about it. It's about 30 to 40, almost 40 pages. And was I conscious that I was writing poetry? No, I was not. It was coming by itself. One only becomes conscious when one edits things. That's how it is. And I remember showing Keki an earlier draft, and he said, it goes on and on, you better edit it a bit. So Keki, I said, okay, I'll do that, but let it first go on, and then I'll see what to edit. So he did see the first draft long ago, before it came out in the book. And as far as production goes, just before the COVID came upon us, there was a very, very big house willing to produce it in a big way. So I was pretty excited, because till now we've had to be satisfied with small productions, hardly any money. So, I mean, this was really big. But I did have a condition that they should not change anything without telling me. That's another thing. If you're a poet and doing dramatic verse, and if you give it to a director, a production house, they will definitely change it and try to make it commercial. So if you're very possessive about your poetry, stay away from dramatic verse, I would say. So that's how it is. Unless you want to keep it very small, with a small production house. Now, the story of Meeting with Lord Yama is about 33-year-old Brinda. Brinda, is that Keki? Okay, it's about 33-year-old Brinda who commits suicide. So we don't know that till the end of the play, but I've revealed it. And then she lands up in Yamapura. That is the abode of the Lord of Death. And there she meets, of course, Yama. Now, Yama is not our scary Yama. He's a dapper-looking, played by Denzel Smith often, and you'll hear him soon. He makes my perfect Yama. So unfortunately, he couldn't come. So I'll just read the part of Brinda. Which life is ours? Which singled out? The call comes unexpectedly. I'm still in body, still in weight, still with outer form and gait. Bones do not crack, words remain intact. Life, past and present, does not flash by. The eyes see as they did yesterday, as they do today. Yet, the end it seems to be for me. Horizontal lines intervene, blurring memories, centuries. Creatures asunder, splits images. The upper a human, the lower an ass. Bodies torn apart in a flash. Brinda hurriedly runs up and down pathways. It's all dark, there are pathways. Subu, Yama's pet dog, barks. Now, these are the instructions you see as part of the drama. I'm giving them to you because you cannot see them visually. Otherwise, they're not required. Brinda, a howl so foul, unheard on earth. That rogue tossing my bones. Where am I? Where am I? Oh heaven, am I in hell? What fate awaits me? Rivers of blood, excrement pus, or 1,000 ghosts of Narak? What causes can affect my rebirth? Will I pay karma's dues? Am I paying them already? I have committed wrongs. I see them now. But my virtues to flash, but my virtues to flaunt would be out of sorts. Escape I must. Escape I must quickly from the jaws of that dog, the jaws of judgment. How? Where? When? How? She runs up and down pathways, returns. No one there or anywhere. No one there or anywhere. How can that be? Am I destined for a future not meant for ordinary beings? But I am not extraordinary. I need not have lost my life. That's another story. I am here now. I am here now, where I never intended to be. I am dead. I am dead. Though life does not appear to leave me. A few minutes later, she meets the dapper-looking Lord Yama. Get ready for the tape. Dare I believe this is death's domain? And Lord Yama so kind to me? There is Lord Yama. Dare I believe this is death's domain? And Lord Yama so kind to me? Those myth manufacturers down there scare us with multi-faced gods, holding as many knives and swords. I feel so strange. I feel so strange. Better if I had really died. Better if I had really died. Am I dead? Life does not seem to leave me. We'll see Denzel who plays Yama.
Hi, I'm Denzel Smith. I will be doing a short excerpt from Anju Makhija's verse drama, Meeting with Lord Yam. Now the narrative is about a 33-year-old teacher, Brinda, who finds herself in Yampura and has an encounter with the Lord of Death. Let's imagine this scenario. An alcove, warm and pleasant. With fancy chairs and a table. Lord Yam looks dapper in a stylish Nehru jacket. He walks around Brinda, takes a red shawl, which seems to appear from nowhere, and drapes it round her shoulders. Young. Cold? Speak. Why so many dead this week? Another Mahabharat? I'll deal with the rascals later. Evil takes its own course. Now, what shall I do with you? Practically a bag of bones. You are Brinda Pillai, 33 years, KG teacher at Barn School. You like dancing, drinking brandy, collecting stamps, breeding fish. I was just guessing. Tell me, how do you feel? I understand. You are naturally nervous. Yet, I sense a certain confidence. Most freeze at my sight. Some even die of fright. You, my dear, had a long journey. And you say you want to return to earth. Here, we pass judgment for saints or sinners. You, I think, are a bit of both. In your case, since Chitragupt has lost your records, if you want to earn your return, tell me in a few words. What have you learned in this past life? I ask you to consider 4 words: love, desire, ambition, and hope. What have you learned about each? Tell me in words brief. Now, shall we start with the word love? I like what you say. It takes 2 to tango, 2 to eat a raw mango. Most things work in 2s. So does love and hate. But I asked about love, not hate. You are truly obsessed, or you wouldn't be here. Sometimes I am carried away too. My dear, if I may be truthful, I feel a little intoxicated by you. However, it'll only last as long as this drink, so I'll let it. Hi, I'm Denzel Smith.
Ma'am, your mic is mute. Your mic is mute. So that was a very enthralling performance by Denzel Smith. I suggest you never change it from the role of Lord Yum. Yeah, your mic is on mute, ma'am. No, we cannot hear you. Uma ma'am, would you please unmute your mic? Nobody is being heard. Ma'am, just try again, please. Try again.
Yes.
I think after video sharing,
Okay,
that happens. If there is any disturbance, that automatically kicks in. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so I was telling you that please never change Denzel Smith from this role.
I'll tell him that.
That's the kind of person one wouldn't die and mind going to.
Yeah. And, actually, he'd sent me a long one of it on the email, but I didn't want to send you all that. Yeah, too much. When the play happens, all of you all come. We'll do it online, maybe.
Sure. So this act of wrapping that red dupatta around Brinda. What was that an indication of? Because this is it's quite understandable. It's an inversion of the Savitri Satyavan story, as you yourself have pointed out. So,
well, what does it mean? Everything is momentary. There are the things that are being done without any long-term plan here. Really, there's things are happening, and you'll find this all through the play, that the dog also metamorphizes into something else. So there is this magical thing also happening. So while you might say connected to this story and that, at that moment he was attracted, at that moment he was not. And there is this, I think, magical quality about the play, because I think the whole situation is a bit magical to me, for me. So I think you'll have to see the play to get the feel where it's going. It's not like, okay, this is how I feel now, and this is how it's going to be. Uma wants to come in and say that on that. Uma?
Yes. So to take Anju's point about inversion in a dramatic verse, she has inverted the Satyavan Savitri episode, as we all know it, where Savitri brought her husband back from death by arguing intelligently. Now here Brinda is trying to influence Yama by her witty, simple dialogues, and she's conscious that she's not even very feminine looking and very attractive, and yet Yam is drawn to her. That's another inversion that Anju speaks about, that he starts falling in love, and it's one of those gestures in every romantic movie. First thing the hero does is take off his own jacket and get it around the shoulders. So, and it's a red shawl. So, contrary to every rule in Chitragupta's book, this girl goes back to earth. And it's not explained why, except the fact that Yama for once would like to not punish people, but give them another chance. It's about life and living and not the manner of dying. So once she debates and ruminates on nature of love, life, hope, ambition, hopefully Yama wants her to reconsider how to live, and as an experiment he sends her back. And this whole gesture is because she's so endearing. And later on, they'll have a drink, or they sit together, he leans over her, he hugs her. So in Satyavan Savitri, it was Savitri's debate, but here it's Yama. Another inversion that I saw Anju make. So I'll stop here unless you want me to talk about the play as a dramatic verse.
Yeah, sure, please do. If it's okay with Sonia.
Yes, it is fine with me. Maybe we should just ask Keki sir to test his mic.
Check
just
with Keki if he...
Yeah, let's check Keki.
Please speak.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Please.
I'm calling him up too. I'm just calling him up as well.
Wait, ma'am, 1 minute, huh? Yeah, Keki sir?
Yes.
Lovely.
That's it. We have made contact.
Yeah, Umaji, Uma Narain to go on with what she wants to say about dramatic poetry and other things.
Sure. And after that, maybe you and Anju ma'am could step in with detailed analysis of your plays as well. So Uma ma'am, please continue.
Okay. So I was fascinated by Anju's play. I met her as a dramatist first, and I was introduced to her as a poet. And the two merge beautifully, and we are consciously using the word verse drama for Anju. I'm not calling it poetic drama. There's a world of difference between in the movement from poetry to verse. So her writing is verse drama, and I'll explain how easy and spontaneous it is for the audience. And as a point of reference, I'm mentioning T.S. Eliot, who wrote poetic drama, and several others, which were very heavy abstractions. And one often wondered how they will be received in theater. Anju's writing is meant for theater, whether she's trained in theater arts or not. The writing grasps the fundamental tools of theater. So it is verse drama and not poetic drama. So I would make that first distinction. And then there are 4 qualities that I identify in Anju's writing and why she has a place in contemporary writing in English. Is the first thing is the dramatic fervor. Anju is not authoritarian by temper. She has a voice, but she finds her voice by co-opting the voice of her characters. The words are hers, but they're not really her words. So there is such drama in her writing because she gives space, allows the characters to speak naturally. There is no attempt at any heavy imagery of the kind that we see in classical writers like T.S. Eliot, but it's very spontaneous. No attempt to teach or pontificate. And that is why it makes the characters very, very relatable. And by the way, all these characters are Mumbai characters who meet the human predicament of being in Mumbai, and therefore the dramatic fervor that helps Anju create dramatic situations, irony, inversion, contrast, paradoxes, juxtapositions. These are the stuff that poetry is made of. And these are the stuff that theater is made of. So dramatic fervor and the kind of situations that Anju creates is very, very dramatic. The second thing that Anju specializes in is wit, humor, and the comic situation, and romancing with life and living. There is no decadence in her plays. You know, it's about Mumbai. It's all the squalor and the greed and success and city that never sleeps. But she's not criticizing. She's not passing a judgment. It's about survival in a mega city. So it's the romance of life and living. And this particular play reminds me so much of Christopher Fry's Lady is Not for Burning, where the lady who's condemned to die wants to live, and there is a man who's been released, but he wants to die, and the two are put in a room together and they talk about life. So I so much thought of Ladies Not for Burning for Christopher Fry, who also wrote poetic drama, and my PhD thesis was on Christopher Fry. So when I looked at Fry also, the use of humor, the wit, the conceit, they make the language come alive. The abstractions about life and death issues, as this play traces, you know, they are lifted by blending comic and dramatic. And because poetry uses imagination, it helps in willing suspension of disbelief of the story. That Yam actually allows her to go back. So a willing suspension of disbelief works in verse plays and poetic drama, because poetry, by virtue of its imagination, helps to generate faith. So that's my second point. The third point in Anju's writing is the use of the language. When I read, when I see Denzel reading or Anju reading, it's like fast words coming like a shower, you know, like water drops from a shower. They shine and sparkle like verbal fireworks. Of words, the rhyme, the repetition, and of course the hanging iambic foot. You know, she has this one-liners. That language is, again, it works very well in drama. So comedy works. Poetry helps it to believe willing suspension of disbelief, and the language, the repetitions, the rhyming and the rhythm and the use of the free words, and of course the hanging iambic flute, as in her aphoristic one line, often reminds me of how many writers use these aphoristic lines. So the words, when they fall like water drops from a shower, they have a coherent cadence, and that's why it works in theater.
Okay, Keki.
Yeah.
Keki.
And the last point I wish to make about Anju's verse play is that it's 50% writing, it's 50% the skill of the performer. It requires a poet who knows where to pause in the line. Verse drama is all about where do you take a pause. And when Denzel was reading, and that's why I insisted on screening Denzel's video recording, because are you conscious that he's reading poetry? Because he's stopping maybe after 1.5 lines or 1.25. So although there is a lyricism in the writing, but it requires an expert actor. Sonia, you mentioned Dharamveer Bharti and saying that people were either reading it as prose or as dialogues, the performer has to understand the inherent lyricism of the delivery and must understand where to put a pause or a full stop, which might be written in 2 lines or 3 lines. And that is something Denzel has done beautifully. And the element of drama, the cadence, the little gruff snide remark or laughter or a cough that he takes, it all adds to the persona, and that is how one is not even aware that one is listening to poetry in theater. So the ultimate test of a verse play is that one should not be conscious the lyricism, the cadence, the flow carries the poetry. And it has all the tools of inversion, conflict, and intensity that Anju speaks about. I could quote certain lines.
No, I think we'll hear Keki now.
Yeah,
before he goes away, before he disappears.
This is your.
You missed the. Keki,
no, but
we want to hear you too.
No, but you will completely change the. This evening is on you.
I know.
This evening belongs to all of us.
Mind reading.
No, you read now before it disappears. Please, Keki, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I also wanted to say about the tension that you build up in some of your plays. The very first one, the reader. Because I haven't seen the play, but I've read it. So the reader, I'll say, is tense what is going to happen in the end. And also the play about locked up in a railway compartment, the tension also builds up, but it doesn't explode, which is the right thing by you. There is a uniformity in them, and they triple on very well. I don't know if you want to really hear excerpt from my play.
I do, Keki. Please read now, without further ado.
Surely, okay, I will. I have no problems.
Yeah.
And it's better that the audience is not seeing my face.
Read. We are listening.
I've written this verse drama, half of which I have lost. I have searched for 4 days and couldn't find it. But this is on Darius Codomenus, the Darius the Third, or Darayush, as the Persians call them. and he lost. Twice he left the battle, though he had killed a lion once. And with the Carthusians, he had had a single combat with the champion in front of both the armies, and he had won. But somehow Alexander unnerved him. And I'm talking about the conversation. There was this is a historical play, and there was an eclipse, and both sides were interpreting them to their favor. The Greeks were saying that the moon is a part of Persian lore, and the Persians were saying just the opposite. Anyway, can I read?
Yes,
I'll read
yes.
5 minutes.
Yes. Please read.
This is the Rayush. Can destinies be conjoined? Because both Alexander and he came on the throne or headed their countries in the same year. Can destinies be conjoined? Must two fiery men parted by the sea and forest move to a showdown because the stars have willed it? I have no clear answers, no blurred ones either. It's just 3 years, but looks and age, so much has been packed into it. Death, regicide, fleets setting sail like fabled argosies, visits to fake ancestral shrines, whilst events move through the long dark intestine of intrigue. The worm of memory turns within the brain. It was the year I was enthroned at Susa. The lights go out and Darius keeps on speaking. And that's not buried in the hoary past, mind you. But just 1,000 days ago, rumors came in like shingle with the tide. Black-headed gulls from the Ionian coast started flying in with the news, and lastly, a messenger flung himself before me. The Persian messengers lay prostrate, and in the play, the Greeks, of course, bow and bend, but they never lie prostrate. Arise, what news have you that cannot wait? And the messenger says, a new king has been crowned in Macedonia, sire, young. Is there something unusual? Then Darius says, is there something unusual in this? Something that my less than keen eye has missed? An old king dies, a young son succeeds him. Isn't that the natural order of things? What upsets you in the man so much? And the messenger says, he is young, great king, not fully 20 yet, and already his people worship him. His temper is violent and legendary. His forehead, the rim of a volcano, and he loathes us. It is difficult to hazard if he seethes more with ambition or hatred for us and all that's Persian. He looks like one of their old heroes, sire, and makes the most of this resemblance. He makes sacrifices to all his gods, and altar fires have been blazing away all over Hellas. They believe Alexander is beloved of all their many gods. And Darius says, I don't grudge him with his worship of 20 gods, so long as I can bend the knee to the only one. If he lets you, sire, the messenger says, if he lets you, sire, and there is a Greek counselor there, Artabizos. Many Greeks fought with the Persians. What insolence is this? Don't you know you could pay for this with your life? Darius, he's full of the insights there and the sounds. Let him be. What else have you heard of him? There are vague rumors, great king. Some people say he planned his father's assassination. Darius, parricide. Well, that's certainly some crime. Though when thrones are in contention, these incidents get glossed over. Such things are excusable. Such things happen too. The word for it. And Arta Bezos says predecessors. Predecessors. Fine word that becomes synonymous with death when it is thrones that we are talking about. Predecessors wind up often in untimely coffins. I'm skipping over a small passage, and he again says, enthroned, and the other characters go out, and he says, I'm ending, I'm very clear the ending, very near the ending. Enthroned in the same year, a bloody drift towards conflict had already started. If two flames meet, the weaker gets extinguished. If two kings are around, one sleeps with death. The wind I sniffed was pregnant with danger, and hoarfrost started digging into the first wrinkles on my skin, on my face. A succession of messengers started speeding towards my court. Each inland gull seemed to squawk, Alexander. The lights dim and then turn bright. A messenger kneels. Messenger, the new Macedonian king has dispatched an army south to cut down forests, sire. Whatever for? They are the only, Darius is speaking now, whatever for? They are the only wealth the poor sod has in his beggar kingdom. Unless, of course, the fool wants to build up the biceps and shoulder blades of his men. Long laughter from the rear of the stage. Some months later, another messenger galloped in. Sound of hooves. I think it was the same fellow who had come earlier, but it didn't register. Kings don't keep count of messengers, Darius is talking. So many had been storming in these months past, injuring shin and kneecap as they hurtled, prone on the floor. The lights dim for a moment, and another messenger hurls himself on the floor. Siavak appears on the king's side. Messenger, sire, I'm breathless and choked with dust. I had brought news once of a forest being cut down. Well, the forest has set sail for the Hellespont, that is where Asia and Europe meet in Turkey now. Siavak, what are you talking of, you raving fool? Which forest is this? How does it set sail? And Darius quietens them and he says, I held my hand up. Things fall in place. Forests, shoulder blades, axes, all make sense. He is talking of the Macedonian king. His men have made boats from the forest timber, and his army has set sail for Asia. Could anything be simpler? Messenger, you are a genius. You say in one metaphor what history takes years to articulate. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Keki.
Such a powerful rendition. Thank you.
Thank you, Keki.
Now, may I request Nirupama ma'am to please comment on Keki sir's reading and the subject matter.
Bas.
Nirupama Dutt, respected journalist, reviewer. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. No problem.
Thank you for having me here. And I must tell you, I'm no big expert like Narain ma'am. Yet it has been a very, very fascinating time with both Anju's reading as well as Keki Daruwalla's reading. And to me, it has been more of a learning process in how words move into play when it is a drama or a theater. And both the writers are extremely seasoned, and I must say I've learned a lot. And more so, the subject of Keki Daruwalla's play is very fascinating, and one would certainly like to read it further. One thing which came to my mind when Narain was talking about Anju's play, which is very interesting, the meeting with Yama. You see, I am from Punjab, and I have witnessed a play many years ago written in Punjabi on the same theme as Savitri and Satyavan. And that was interestingly called Pawn Taragi, which means wind for a waistband. It's wind for a waistband that Savitri wears and flies into the skies. But beyond that, there was nothing very new in that play. But what I heard Anju say was simply fascinating and just amazing how the dialogue with Yama is, and how the character, the woman protagonist who returns with the red shawl. And I look forward to reading Keki's play and be able to talk or write more about it. And what has been very interesting in the reading, both the readings, is, how the words flow and the distance between the words. That has been another very amazing factor of today. And also the speech which was screened here was totally fascinating. In fact, I'm grateful that I was in this journey, even though as a passive participant, but it has been something to learn from, something to remember. And, plays have always fascinated me. And I also attempted half a play, short play, which was on the life of a Mumbai feminist, Flavia Agnes. Her autobiography I had turned into a little play which we staged in Chandigarh. But this has been, this interaction has been amazing for me. Otherwise, I'm a poet, I write in Punjabi. But today I'd like to share a little poem, because I don't want to not say anything, and which is like a like a play, like a little theater. It is called Evening in Chandigarh. This evening, I will sit with a few. I'm reading the translation in English. This evening, I will sit with a few friends, down a couple of rums, and turn a wee bit drunk. We will start with talking of Punjab and paste on the wall shadows of friends alive or lost in a collage of sorts. Then we will hum a sad verse by Surjit Patar. When the room turns hazy with the smoke of memories, we will move on to folk songs. Our long-haired friend, who is to be found these days in Kumar Vikal's poems, will sing a song of longing and love, and my turn will come. I will play clown with much aplomb, mimic a few, and crack a body joke about the whites. Friends will tire of laughing, and our Sufi friends will want something else. Suddenly, the news reporter will come, spinning a yarn or two. He will weave a news story on the clothes and the words of the friends around. I will crack a very nasty joke about the whites once more. And our friend, the theatre wala, silent so far, will stuff his mouth with a tobacco pan and ask his wife to make him some more tea. Then he will relent to sing a song of Pankaj Malik. Music will fill the air and he will be just a little high. So, taking full advantage, I will intervene and become the leading lady of a play. This is where I play with the play. I will intervene and become the leading lady of a play never to be staged. Recite some funny lines from your story and mine that is listed as yet another unhappy affair in the city gazetteer. Yes, this is how I will spend this evening and move on to a new morn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, the play
Thank
element
you so much for letting me.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, I would like to revert to Uma ma'am for her comments. Before that, I had to ask Anju ma'am and Keki sir a question with regard to the consciousness of grandeur in the plays. I mean, look at the plays that both of you have written. They require a certain sense of the grand, of the magnificent, or the out of the world. So how do you contextualize that idea in terms of dramatic verse? Does one, necessarily serve as a requirement for the other? I mean, is it always better to have such a grand subject so as to bring out the full effect of this dramatic verse? How is it? It's just a very basic question. Uma ma'am, I'm adding you to the discussion as well. So first we'll start with Anju ma'am. In a few words, your opinion.
I'll answer it briefly.
Yeah.
Because I know that we've spent our hour and we still have Sonu Anand coming up now. So I think we'll be very brief. I just want to say, I don't think it is required. But somehow, if you look at dramatic verse and situations, and in the early century as well, there was always this grand scale thing happening. We all know some of the plays of the earlier times and the earlier century. They were always grand. And they were also, as we know, they are also commissioned by the kings and things like that. So now, then we went through the whole period where plays became very simple, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the absurd theatre. But you're asking, do we need this whole scale? My answer simply would be no. But now that you mention it, I may think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Keki sir, could you let me know what you think about this, what I just asked?
Well, you can ask. I was enthralled by the plays, the book of. I've read about 3, and the Mumbai Traps.
No, I'm asking if your choice of subject matter for your own dramatic verse,
Yes.
and the role of grandeur that is there in the play. When you're writing dramatic verse, do you conceive it as something that requires grandeur, or how is it? Like how
do you need grandeur?
Yeah, like once upon a time, it was said that tragedy should not be enacted about the lives of ordinary individuals. It has to be about the lives of kings and princes. So that when the fall comes, it leads to catharsis. So similarly, does dramatic verse require that grandeur of subject?
Yes. I mean, if you are thinking of old plays, and This I thought of about 20 years earlier. I've never published it because I thought nobody would be interested. And now I've lost half the play. Anyway, I hope somehow or the other I'll patch it up. So it's also a defect, a personal defect, that I take up subjects which have a certain connection with the epic. And one must get down to smaller facts, smaller things, and day-to-day life. I take this as a big drawback in my outlook as far as writing is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So, Uma ma'am, your comments, so we can then go to Sonu.
It's an honor to listen to an unpublished play written by Keki and recited by Keki. So, congratulations! What a wonderful writing. I'm very happy that the two playwrights are juxtaposed, and it proves my point, which is not the purpose why I'm commenting. Keki takes up a very historical, profound, somber content. And if you go back to the history of verse plays or poetic drama, you know, the grand style and the profound thematics, they go together, and that's how the people in the court spoke. So Keki's play will be enacted with all the grandeur of costumes and the background, whereas Anju doesn't require any props on the stage, and it's about humanizing the mythical figure of Yam. And therefore, her treatment in the audience, I would expect everybody to get it. Whereas Keki's is a very profound thought, Darius and Alexander, and Keki's play reminds me of Murder in the Cathedral. You know, the kind of theme and the kind of poetic in his writing from whatever little piece we heard just now. It's a grand style. Epic is the theme. So grand style in poetry arises when you pick up a subject which is sober, serious, and the style is also profound and elevated. So it's a beautiful match for the kind of writing that Keki does. Even in his poems, probably are influenced by his close observation of violence. You know, they take a somber tone, whereas Anju's use of comedy in verse drama would act very differently for the audience. And I'll stop there. I must congratulate Keki for this wonderful play that he's writing, and I look forward to reading the whole play, Keki. And I'll stop there.
Sorry, I was on mute all this while. I'm so sorry. I said I would like to invite Mr. Sonu Anand. Yeah, television personality.
I couldn't hear it. Okay.
Theatre activist, to please read an excerpt from the play.
So I'll be reading an excerpt from the play Last Train, and this scene is called The Imaginary Scene. A stark yellow light forms a circle, Naresh and Gopal move around it. Rajesh speaks like a child. Bang, 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 gun them, bang, bang, bang. He falls to the floor as if shot. Dirty boy, blackface, dirty, dirty, dirty. Dirty boy, blackface, dirty, dirty, dirty. He rolls on the floor. Naresh and Gopal move around the light in tandem. Part-time dreamers, full-time schemers. Part-time dreamers, full-time schemers. Off to the office, making plans, selling, buying, trading onions and potatoes in New Mumbai. Diamonds and prostitutes in Old Mumbai. A cut here, a pack there, ice-cold beer. We salt our wounds, scatter thoughts. Stay focused, my friend. The goal will be ours. To make this trio rich, not necessarily famous, we should market a people-proof door. A people-proof door to shut the world to friends, families, and foes. Excellent, my friend. You get my drift. In certain matters, you are swift. Now this door, what material, what texture, what finish? The days of copper, iron, and steel are numbered. Plastic, styrofoam is the face of the future. Paper, mache, polyester resin, anything within unreason to fool friend and foe. And priced less than steel or teak, much less indeed. Ah, now I understand. To fool the family man is your cunning plan. Brilliant. For all his appearance, did Shakespeare say that, or closer to home, was it Tagore? Matters not, it's been implied before. But what if a stone in play or rage causes the door to collapse like an old sage? Before word of mouth destroys our dreams and truth in front pages revealed, 1,000,000 people we will have betrayed, a fortune reaped from garbage heap. Part-time dreamers, full-time schemers. Part-time dreamers, full-time schemers. They move around the circle of light. Rajesh continues babbling like a child. Lights fade. Thank you.
You know, your reading reminds me of what was supposed to be the original title of T.S. Eliot's Wasteland. He do the police in different voices. There's so many voices and so simultaneously. Great respect for you, Sonu. It's really wonderful to listen to you. So, Anju ma'am, could we have your closing remarks, please?
Anjuji?
Yeah. I just wanted to say that you want to go ahead. So some people, Sonia.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this has been a very interesting session in terms of not just our exposition of what we call dramatic verse, but also in terms of the kind of vision that, very relevant and important dramatists of the time are putting forth. And it can probably spark a very interesting trend in the days to come, particularly if, your play goes back to theater, Keki's play is found and produced. I think that it could mean a lot in terms of how we view drama at this point of time. It could be a very interesting departure from the existing trends and traditions. So, and we should remember that it all began here. That's all I wanted to say. So, Anju ma'am, I would like to take it over to you for your concluding remarks.
No, nothing. I think we're already late. I just wanted to thank Sonia, the festival people who are behind the scenes, Uma, Niru, Sonu, and Denzel, and of course Keki for this lovely, lovely evening. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Keki sir. It was lovely meeting you and lovely to have all of you here, Uma ma'am, Nirupama sir, Sonu, and Denzel, who wants people dead or wished they were dead, so he could be young and we could go there, kind of a thing. But yeah, and thank you everybody who's here and watching and who will be watching us. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening. Yeah. So we are ending the meeting now, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Keki sir. Thank you,
Sonia, for being a perfect sutradhar.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure for Anju. Okay. Thank you, Keki sir. Thank you, everybody.